on the bottom of this slide. We are a learning and development company that is based here in Czech Republic, and we try to be a global connector for innovation and inspiration, basically connecting companies with their challenges, with subject matter experts globally from anywhere in the world. And that is the case today, bringing Abhay to this conversation to give his perspective. To better explain who we are, we as well prepared a very short video, which we keep our fingers crossed Luboš can now play for us. So let's see.
Founded on over 21 years' experience in experiential learning, the Global Exec's network of 25,000 industry experts across 140 global destinations means your business can tap into a world of industry know-how. We use a fully customized and individualized approach to craft open innovation events and learning and development programs through excursions abroad or online versions. We work with you from initial consultation, co-design, implementation, and post-event evaluation to create a bespoke leadership experience that will resonate for years. If you're looking for a trusted partner for transformative business growth to spark new ideas and remedy business pain points for your organization, reach out to us at theglobalexec.com.
Thank you so much. So this is a little bit about me, myself, and the company I represent. And I would pass the word to Luboš, not only to introduce himself, but as well the whole concept of the bridges as the program itself.
Yeah, but it has to be quick because I don't think anybody came for me. Yeah, I'm Luboš Malý. Some of you know me. I represent the one and only educational network in Czechia and Slovakia, which is the Red Button EDU. We focus on building capabilities that we believe are differentiated for the next few years, which is obviously leadership, bringing people closer to technologies, as well as company culture or leadership. Many people can say that. What I believe is unique is that we combine various formats for individualized learning, like the online stuff that everybody has, like the live meetups, but also informal meetups of what we call learning communities, and using the sharing as the way to learn the fastest. In other words, we combine what is the kind of learning from experts, learning from the other people across businesses, together with some informality and smart system behind. You can check the Red Button EDU, but since this recording will be placed at the Red Button EDU portal, then I think many of the people who will see the recording already know the system. Yeah, it sounds fairly old since it's based on the Red Button network, which is already like 6 years, but this is actually a very new project. It's like we started a year ago. So let's see, and I'm very glad that we can already start the partnerships with Deloitte, thanks to Thomas, with the Global Exec, thanks to Monika, and a few more, because education and building capabilities should be an open system. Yeah, so that's why we like to partner. And regarding bridges, one day I met Monika and said, look, the world seems to go nuts. There is very little that we can rely on. It seems that all the the partnerships and all the relationships that have been built over the last decades, for some reason, suddenly can be destroyed in a second. So can we try and build a few bridges between people, between companies, between continents? And that's why we called the program Bridges. And ideally, it has to have a meaningful content. And therefore, we believe that the future of retail and how people not only shop, but how they think about purchasing stuff, what they would like to consume, how they would like to consume, is one of the key aspects of understanding other continents, other cultures, and that's, I believe, is a perfect bridge to Abhay, because that's what he represents and why we invited him for the session today.
Absolutely. And just a couple of notes on Abhay. We met 2 or 3 years ago. Originally, we contacted Abhay as our potential client. After a couple of conversations that we had together, we very soon realized that he knows much more than we could provide him with. And from the box of a client, we moved him to the box of our subject matter expert, who we now involve in our activities, either business excursions or interactive meetups, basically sharing his knowledge and his perspective with the community that we have around us. So I think I will just mention key points about Abhay that I took from his LinkedIn, from the conversation with him. Innovation transformation leader, angel investor, top 10 corporate innovation leader in India 2021, official member of Forbes Technology Council, together with Ondrej Vlček, for example, from Avast here in Czech Republic. Without any further ado, I think that we spent kind of enough time of introduction. Abhay, are you still there?
Thank you so much for the kind introduction.
Please, floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And it was fantastic to hear the concept behind bridges as well. Thank you so much for sharing that as well, and giving me this opportunity to be here and have a conversation with all of you about the phygital world and moving from or innovating at both ends, from phygital and physical and digital as well, right? So that's what I'm going to be talking about. Let me share my screen quickly. Please let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So that's the topic I'm talking about today, and I'll try and keep it very interactive. So feel free to ask me any questions. Before I dwell further, as an innovator of sorts, that's been my passion. That's been an area where I've been trying to create impact all these years. My philosophy is very, very simple: that objects in the future may be closer than they actually appear, and that in many cases is always true, right? We've always seen science fiction movies or read science fiction books, and then you realize that it's not as far as we think it's science fiction, because in a lot of these books and movies we talk about 100 years from now, but a lot of those things end up happening in the next 10 years, right? So a lot of examples around that, and that's the key philosophy that I take forward when I think about innovating and think about disruptive innovation. So today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about India's journey in digital transformation, how some of the examples have been very interesting, specifically from a leapfrogging standpoint, right? And then I'm going to talk to you about some of the case studies where I have personally been involved and deployed solutions, innovative solutions to transform retail companies as well as consumer-facing companies who've been able to tap into that innovation and see a major impact on the financials, right? Either top line or bottom line as well. I was already introduced, so I do not want to go more in depth, but I've been a part of various organizations that try to give back to the ecosystem in different ways possible, including running a syndicate of my own where I've invested in 24 startups in my personal capacity as well. And the current company that I work for is TVS Motors. Rather, I represent the TVS Group, a cluster of companies together, which has one of the primary flagship companies is into bikes or two-wheeler and three-wheeler company. And we have a 6% market share. That means 6 out of 100, automobiles, two-wheelers that you see across the globe are those of TVS. We also, of course, have partnered with BMW and produce all the sub 500cc two-wheelers of BMW in India as well. Now let me talk to you about digital transformation in India, right? And the multiple examples I think that come to my mind, and specifically around leapfrogging examples, right? This is a quick question for the audience, right? Do you know what's the population of US?
300?
300 now.
300?
350.
350 million, right? Now, what if I tell you that the overall population of US is 350, like you just mentioned, 350 million, and in India we have 1.2 billion people, almost 4 times that population, using mobile phones, of which 750 million, which is double or more than double the population of US, using smartphones, right? Now, it didn't come to that very easily. It didn't happen quickly. India was one of those countries which did not have fixed lines. Unlike a lot of other countries where people, every home had a fixed line, India did not. And India did not invest in that early on because we were an emerging economy. We were still growing. Some people would also call it a third world country back then. I don't believe that we are, we can be categorized as one today. But then when we decided to, transform the telecommunication space, bring in 2G, 3G, 4G, and now 5G as well, we didn't think about the fixed lines at all. We said that, we don't care about fixed lines. We need to directly leapfrog. And today, like I mentioned, we have the largest network of people, or largest cluster of people, 750 million people at least, and growing from here every minute, every hour, where people are using smartphones, right? And that's fantastic to see, because that's such a large market available of internet consumers today. And a lot of focus is on vernacular, because India has humongous number of languages across. So think of the European countries, think of the states in India. Every state has a different, or at least a few different languages, right? So people are now tapping into vernacular, and I'm talking about all the big players in the world today, tapping into that so that they can consume or provide data and consume data from the 750 million users who are utilizing their applications. Another interesting journey that I've seen in India is that of digital payments. Right now, typically India is known as a very clear utilization of cash exchanges, right? And this is what started changing a few years back, a decade back. And if you can see in 2010, India was still, you know, second globally, after China in terms of millions of transactions. We had 265 million transactions annually at one point of time that were happening in India, right? In 2015, we kind of outrace US big time, and we're still having a big delta with China. But the pace of adoption of digital was changing very quickly in India. In 2018, as early 2018 is when we first overtook China in terms of the largest number of transactions globally that were happening for payments in India. And this is the current scenario in 2022. Currently, right now, we have more than doubled the number of digital payment transactions in India as against China, and US is of course not even close. This is an interesting narrative of leapfrogging, right? Because we did not go into credit cards. When the rest of the world was talking about credit card penetration, we said that credit card penetration in India is still less than 1%. And we don't care about it because today everyone in India, be it a hawk vendor as well, or hawker as well, who's looking at selling cigarettes in a very small shop, or vegetables, or someone, it's hilarious, but I've seen someone who's begging for money, asking for digital currency as well, right? It's as weird as that everyone uses digital currency to run digital transactions today, right? And to showcase that, I want to also play a video from the Confederation of Indian Industries. So let me do that, and let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
So this was just to give you a perspective, right? Now let me give you a fun fact. As of last month, the number of financial digital transactions that happen in India on a daily basis have been on the upwards of 260 million transactions per day, right? There was a time that we were talking about 265 million transactions in the year to talking about 260 million transactions per day, and that happened a few days back, right? And that is where we're heading. Another fun fact, by 2026, we'll be talking about $10 trillion worth of transactions in a year by 2026 in India alone, right? That's the scale I'm talking about. And another very interesting thing, in most countries, it's still very inverted as a pyramid. So it's the case in India. But by 2025, we're talking about 65% of all the payments in the country happening digitally. That is a clear example of leapfrogging that I wanted to talk about. That people have stereotypes and preconceived notions about different countries. But there are countries who are leapfrogging very, very quickly, and India is not just the only one. There's so many other countries who are doing that very aggressively and outpowering in terms of the market size, etc. As against some of the global leaders that we perceive them to be. So let me go forward and talk to you a little bit more about phygital innovation in the retail space, right? So today, when we talk about phygital innovation, the way I've been looking at it for the last few years, phygital innovation in my head, is kind of broken down into two very clear pieces, right? One is that how do we bring the advantages of physical retail to e-commerce? One of the biggest advantages of physical retail is touching products. Another example is that you can talk to a subject matter expert and go to a Decathlon or go to a Lidl or I don't know, Target or Walmart or wherever you are. You can go to some of these retail large format stores or an IKEA and talk to subject matter experts about choosing the right product for your utilization, right? And that doesn't really happen in e-commerce. Same as consuming information easily, which is sometimes a challenge because you have a problem of choosing products, ordering them, then probably returning them, and that too is a recent phenomenon that you can return with ease. And the last is faster access to products. How do you get it delivered quickly to your place, as against going to a store, buying it, and immediately having a product in your hand, right? So these are certain major challenges that I found in e-commerce, and we've been trying to solve for that, right? And the other category, of course, is that how do you make your stores more responsive as against what we have known them for, right? Can we create faster checkouts, more digitally accurate checkouts, create omni-channel presence where people can consume data both online and offline and be able to access their products both online and offline, easier and safer information access, and store analytics that will allow us to drive more convenient shopping experience for our consumers. So these are two different segments that we based a lot of our experiments on, ran partnerships with various startups. Sometimes a multitude of startups came together to solve for a larger challenge as well. And today I'm going to talk about three or four of such examples of what we've been able to accomplish, specifically with me being a part of those teams and leading some of those efforts as well. So let me start off first by giving you an example of store-based innovation, right? How did we bring more innovation at store through digital technologies and digitally transforming stores? So, here the case study was very simple that, in large format stores such as Lowe's, which was my previous organization, we serve 25 million customers every week across 2,200 stores. Now we had implemented self-checkouts in most of these stores, or almost all the stores. And the bigger problem with the self-checkouts was, and I don't know if this happens in Europe or not, or is it such a big problem, but in US, at the time of self-checkouts, people either end up missing out on scanning certain products and they walk out, or, I mean, this is sometimes done intentionally, sometimes it's done unintentionally, right? You just miss it out. Sometimes you actually pick up something, don't scan it, and just walk out purposely. Now in India, the funny thing is that there are sirens at the door. So when you walk out and the QR code is not scanned and you've not really purchased or paid for the product, the siren buzzes and hey, listen, this person is taking something which has not been paid for. But in US, that doesn't happen, specifically with public listed companies, right? So people allow people to walk out for two reasons. One is that, in case by any chance there's a failure at our end too, and we have tagged the wrong person for it, we get sued and our public prices drop drastically, right? Because social media. The second thing is that, sometimes what we have also seen, there are also crimes where people pick this up, and when we try to stop people, they take out guns. And for the sake of saving certain amount of dollars for a particular product, of course we can't risk lives, right? So we let people walk out irrespective of whether they've paid for a product or they have not. And that means that there's a huge amount of shrinkage or losses where we don't even know the products have been off the shelves, out of the stores, and they've not been paid for. So we were trying to solve for two problems. One was to quantify, first of all, how big is the loss that we are incurring every year across all the stores. We have no way to identify that, right? Because these are humongous stores and there are 2,200 stores, like I mentioned. And the second is, how do we even stop something like this from happening? And that is where we partnered with a startup called Infilect in India which is a computer vision AI ML startup, right? Whose job was to actually identify every checkout activity at self-checkout aisles and capture that and in real-time basis or almost near real-time basis, send a support signal or a message of sorts to the nearest store associate saying that this person has not been able to check out all their items. Can you assist them? Right? So I'll just walk you through a example of what this looks like, and then we'll take it forward from there in terms of the impact that it's created. There's no audio to this, but I just want you to see this person comes in with a cart in the store. Automatically on the right, if you see, they have identified that there are 3 products. All 3 of them are not scanned, and there's a session has started. The cart is near the bay. So the algorithm has already analyzed that. There's an analysis as well. Scanner picked, scanner near product, scan positive. They've scanned the second product. And if you see the analysis box below, it shows product scan 1, products detected 3. So he'll do it for the second one as well, which is a bigger box. And then he decided not to scan the third product. And that's very clearly visible. Now, ideally, what we do is we do not, I mean, this was an experiment, so we did not stop the consumer from walking out. But an ideal scenario is that, we do not allow the consumer to pay and complete the transaction when they have not scanned all the products. And the message on the terminal at the payment, the POS would be that, the nearest store associate will come and assist you in this. So that gives us a little bit of time, maybe 15 seconds for someone to reach there and help them scan all the products. But in this case, payment has been made only for 2 products. The third product has not been scanned, and they have walked out with the 3 products, right? And this happens all the time across the day, across the 2,200 stores in Lowe's. And imagine that, Walmart has 10,000 stores, Target has about 3,000 stores as well. All the retailers face this problem today, large format retail stores. So this has a potential impact of billions of dollars annually. And we were able to solve for this. We deployed this at a 90% accuracy at the store level. And the first in the lab, it was actually 94% accuracy. And then we deployed this in a few stores, and we were able to successfully pilot it at scale as well after that. Since I'm no longer in those, I do not know how much of money have they been able to save right now, but I'm talking about the potential impact being a few $1 billion. And a few $1 billion is a lot of money. So one innovation can really solve for such a big transformation exercise where there's not humanly possible for you to capture all these insights and analytics at the store level to give back to the business and say, hey, listen, this is how much money we are losing in the first place. Because when I interviewed a lot of stakeholders within the value chain at Lowe's, I was not able to get any answer, any estimate of how much money do we lose in the first place. We had no idea to even how do we quantify this number. So first, we were able to quantify this number, of course, with certain assumptions. And 2, we were able to deploy our technology after 6 months of working, or about 8 months of working with a startup and deploying it across different stores in the US, keeping in mind all the legal considerations and compliance considerations that we have to follow. So this is an example of store-based digital transformation.
Abhay, I will jump in just to check with the audience if there are any questions at this moment or comments or anything to add to this first case study that was shared so far. No questions so far. Okay, I just wanted to...
Maybe a question. Was there any feedback captured from any of the customers who tested out the new system?
Have you heard it clearly loud, Abhay? Or do you want us to repeat that?
I partially heard that. I could hear that, was there any feedback captured from the consumers is what was the question, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, so we did run these tests. Now, the idea was to make it as convenient for the customers, right? So in most cases, consumers didn't even know that there was something going on because these were cameras which were already pre-installed. We were just using the live feed to run analytics on top of that. And in some cases where consumers like, what happened to my POS machine? It suddenly started showing an error message. We said there's some problem with the POS machine, and we, probably it was detecting that, maybe all the products are not scanned. So we tried to help you out. And they were perfectly okay with that, right? Because they were getting two conveniences. One, they were still getting a faster checkout. Two, they were getting the assistance from a store associate to help them scan all the products. Now, the only consumers who could have a problem with this technology are the people who are intentionally trying to, not scan all the products and move out. We also noticed a very few consumers, when they realized that, someone came to assist them, they actually returned the product back, saying that we don't want to purchase this. So either which way is, we save the shrinkage, and that is important. And we, at the same time, we did not create any consumer hassle. The idea was to also ensure that there's no consumer hassle created.
Thank you.
Maybe I have one more. Abhay, have you tried POC in Europe?
Sorry?
If you have tried the use case that you presented somewhere in Europe.
No, we haven't. I tried this only in US, like I said earlier, right? For any hypothesis to work, you need to really understand a lot of consumer insights and trends before that. I do not even know if this is such a big challenge in Europe today or not.
I think the challenge would be GDPR. I don't know if you can process in a programmatic way the images of people's faces. So I was wondering if you have encountered this problem before.
I couldn't hear you properly. I understood that you're talking about scanning images and certain GDPR or maybe other compliances around that. Is that the question?
That is correct.
Yeah, so we kept in mind all the compliances, and that is why it took us 8 months to even deploy it in one store, because there's certain legal and compliance-based aspects that you have to consider, because Lowe's is a Fortune 30 company, right? It's a $110 billion top line company. So of course, any pilot that goes on to the store or in front of the consumers, we have to make sure that we safeguard our interests from legal compliances standpoint. And all those compliances were factored in to ensure that, none of the data was captured. Two, the algorithm was not able to pick up biases as well, because if you put a self-learning algorithm out there to pick up cases such as these, there has to be a lot of masking done on the videos, right? Otherwise, what happens is, basis certain data points, the algo can automatically infer, for example, that maybe 80% of the, shrinkages happen with people who are left-handed versus right-handed. So now it starts looking at some of these activities with more suspicion, and a bias creeps in. So a lot of effort was not just about left-handed, right-handed, it was about the color, it was about the gender, and so on and so forth. So we had to look at a lot of these things, mask out a lot of data to ensure that, one, there's no data storage, two, we don't identify people, three, there are no biases getting crept in. So from a legal and compliance standpoint, we had to be 100% sure before we deployed that, even in a single store outside of the lab, that we are not, we are completely compliant with all the policies and legal frameworks. And two, we are not causing any hassles to the consumer.
Thank you.
Alrighty. So the next one I'm going to talk to you about is on the e-commerce bit, right? So one of the biggest challenges that we felt in e-commerce is that, people are not able to interact with store associates. So for example, in Lowe's, Target, etc., they are category experts who give you a lot of guidance when you walk into the store. They help you choose the right products. On .com or e-commerce platforms, you have chatbots. Now, when we did our interaction with a lot of consumers to capture the right kind of problem statements, we realized that, majority of the people do not like chatbots. But there is a other sense as well, where people said that, hey, listen, we still prefer chatting with chatbots, primarily because a textual chatbot will not judge us. We know it's a chatbot, it's not a human, we can ask dumb questions and we will not get judged. So we even got this kind of a perspective. So what I'm trying to say is that, before we put out any hypothesis out there to solve for a problem, we look at all the extremes possible, right, to capture what the consumers really want. But now majority of the people, at least 90% of the people said that, hey, listen, the biggest problem is, can we get more category experience and expertise coming in from a human-to-human interaction? Now, human-to-human interaction at that scale is not possible, and that is why we started experimenting around generative AI and hyperreal AI. and we partnered with a startup called Rephrase. Rephrase has become very famous of late because they have won a lot of awards at Cannes and so on, and a lot of global platforms as well recently for the interesting advertisements that they've placed out in the Indian market over the last 6 to 8 months with some of the biggest celebrities, partnering with the likes of Mondelez, Sony, and so on and so forth, right? So this idea came to them that maybe the intermediate use case could be, let's say, influencer marketing. Can I record half a minute or 1 minute of or half an hour of someone speaking and create an avatar out of that, which is looking like them, which speaks almost in the same tonality, which has similar facial expressions, and can be conceived as a real human, but layered with contextual knowledge of a particular category as part of the tech stack, right? Can we do that, and can we support that in the form of influencer marketing, or let's say a hyper real AI avatar on any e-commerce platform? So the e-commerce platform is a long bet 3 years from now, because I don't think so most of the e-commerce platforms are ready from an infrastructure standpoint to have such tech stacks on their engines right now, on the web right now, interacting with millions of customers simultaneously. So we used it for influencer marketing as well, and that has been super successful for Rephrase. And I'm going to give you an example of how this worked out in case of me being one of the first guinea pigs to have created my own hyper relay avatar. And I'm telling you, this is a 2020, mid 2020 example. Back then, I had to actually shave my beard, take off my glasses for the algo to really capture me, right? And this was one of the first experiments. Of course, we did a bunch of experiments after that. And as per one of the reports from restofworld.org, which published an article, they called me one of the first corporate leaders, one of the first few corporate leaders across Asia to have my own hyper real AI avatar in mid 2020. So let me just walk you through this example as well. And the idea was that whatever you see in the video has not been said by me. It's basic text that could be entered by anyone, and this is different from deep fakes.
Hi, I'm your virtual Abhay, synthetically created. Till now, creating professional quality videos has been a huge high production effort. But now you can just write the script and get a video within 5 minutes. Isn't this awesome?
It's also super easy to change my voice, so I can have a casual voice with some customer, or change my tone when speaking with other customers. And remember, this involves no voice casting, auditions, recording, nothing.
And yes, I can also switch into a female voice, by the way.
Mind blown, right? But this is just the start. There are a variety of faces to choose from, and mix and match them with different voices each time. Say if you are shopping on the Lowe's Windows section, I can show you around. And when it comes to plumbing, I can tailor my avatar to make you comfortable and confident in a buying decision. And this is just the start. Good to be back, completely with my face and my voice. Let's step up together in the future of video creation.
So now for influencer marketing or for hyper real AI and e-commerce, this can really transform the experience for the consumers and bring one of the key tactile sensibilities that is not really present in e-commerce to e-commerce, right? And that is what we tried doing. We also ran a Turing's test on this. As of 2021, July, August timeframe, we failed that. When I said Turing's test, we basically wanted to see if 80% of the humans were not able to differ between the hyper real AI agent versus the real me, right? And we got to about 65%, which meant that there was a lot more scope to improve on. But I think by now, with the latest advertisements that I've seen from Rephrase, they have crossed that barrier, and now it's very realistic. So do check out Rephrase when you get some time. It's fantastic, and it's been invested in by Lightspeed in US. So that's another very interesting example of tactile e-commerce that I wanted to share with you. I know we are running out of time. Can I take the liberty of showing one more case study, or should I just skip that and come to questions?
How do you feel? We do still have time, so that is definitely time for the third case.
Okay.
But there is a nod from the audience. Please go ahead.
Okay, great. So next one is again on e-commerce, right? Now this is a technology that has come in a few years back, And I was working at Target when we first started working with a startup called Story Express. Now the problem statement is simple, right? E-commerce players have millions of products listed on their website. We realized that video-based discussion of information of any product leads to a much stronger increase in intent of purchase as against just images or multiple images. And this technology came in when we were of course not talking about 360s and multiple angle shots and so on and so forth. We're talking about 1 to 6 images of a particular product on a product display page on an e-commerce platform, right? And we realized that for the expensive products, of course, there were videos being created by the various companies, right? Various vendors like Unilever and so on and so forth. And but these videos were very expensive and very time consuming to create those in actual studios. So, for example, it took more than $8,000 to $10,000 at that point of time to create one video, and it took at least 4 weeks for it to, for all the post digital work to be done on that, and be brought out and made it live on the website, right? Now imagine this is for one product. Imagine if you have 2 million or 5 million products. It's not possible. Even the likes of Amazon and Walmart cannot scale. They would go bankrupt if they have to get all the 2 million products out there. And by the time they would have done that, it would have been about 10 years from when the product was even launched, right? So to keep that in, to look at that, we thought that let's partner with a startup which can stitch together images and we can test it out if this creates an impact and add to cart, where a consumer actually adds a particular product to the cart before checkout after looking at the video. And what we saw was that, it was amazing to see that, the add to cart percentage increased by 10%, which is humongous in e-commerce, right? 10% increase for a company which talks about $100 billion top line. You're talking about additionally, and when you talk about add to cart, there'll be some spillage over there from the actual checkouts. Let's say even if I consider 5% of that, sorry, 50% of that to actually check out, then I'm talking about 5% increase in the overall checkout, which means for a 100 billion company, an additional 5% on that would be made on additional revenues, which is $5 billion. Now, at what cost? This company that we work with, they were initially, and I'll probably first show you the video and then come to, the cost of it. But yeah, see, it's 5+%. Now, interestingly, instead of 4 weeks, it actually took us less than 15 minutes to create a video because it was templatized, stitching together videos across categories. It's such an incremental example. The reason I brought this as against some of the other disruptive examples was such a simple technology of stitching together images, putting it out on a digital asset management tool for storage, and then pushing it out live onto the platform all in 15 minutes, as against 4 weeks that it takes in a studio environment. And to be honest, the current price that Story Express offers is $400. At one point of time, we have done it for $50 as well, right, per video, as against $8,000 to $10,000, right? So imagine the scale that can be achieved through this and so quickly, right? And this, such a small innovative product, changed the way we looked at e-commerce today. Today, all the major e-commerce players across the globe, all the major ones, are using the same technology either through Story Express or through some of the other vendors. And we worked on this in 2016. And Target was one of the first customers of Story Express. They shifted their base to US in Minneapolis. And since then, they got Amazon, Walmart, Lowe's, and I don't know few who are, right? I mean, all the major retailers and e-commerce players in the country became their clients. So small examples, but really big financial impact for the organization.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for doing that. Abhay, I again tend to the audience to pick up if there is any comment, question on this part so far, or any takeaway. Anything that surprised you, in fact? Anything?
I would like to know, so is there anybody who knocks on your door and would like to use it? So in other words, how successful is that startup at the moment?
So on behalf of Target, we invested in them in 2017. And I can say that they are at about 75x the valuation today. So they're fairly successful if the valuation has gone 75x up.
Sounds about right. Thanks.
Thank you. I think that we
I wish I would have personally invested in them at that point of time, right? I would have been richer now. And if there are no other questions, that I can just touch upon this last one, which is again a physical format innovation, digital transformation innovation.
So, if you don't mind, before jumping into that, Thomas had a question, so I think that before you forget.
Yes, but I was wondering that, so we have big corporations where we make even incremental innovations, we save a lot of money. And then there is a whole tech ecosystem that is coming up with innovative solutions. And I was wondering, seeing how you appear to be the matchmaker in linking these two worlds together, what is exactly the magic or the role that you bring in bringing those ecosystems together?
So how do you combine the world of big corporates where the innovation world looks slightly different with these startups? Yeah.
Sure. So it's been a challenge, to be honest, right? Big corporations and the maturity curves of innovation, right? So when I talk about big organizations working with startups or tapping into innovation potential of various external markets, it's not been an easy feat. A lot of larger organizations over a period of time have managed to gradually latch on things, see the financial impact that they've been able to see, and then gradually say, okay, let's double down on this effort, right? And my journey has been no different, right? So I've been, this is my fourth corporate where I'm heading corporate innovation. The first one was Target Accelerator as part of Target Strategy and Innovation team, where I was heading the Target Accelerator in India as well as their consumer IoT portfolio. Then I went on to set up the open innovation platform for Anheuser-Busch InBev, which is the world's largest beer brewer, 500 brands across 150 countries. I set up their open innovation platform in India, which is now scaled across Asia. Then I was the global director for innovation at Lowe's, which is again a Fortune 31 company. And I had different challenges in each of these environments. But I think one thing that kept me going was the fact that, apart from the obvious increase in consumerism, which leads to business impact, there's also a lot of impact on the consumers directly, right? And the thought process behind that was that, can I create a positive impact in the lives of millions of people through corporates and by leveraging the route of innovation? So that kept me going. And I think that is how I was able to gradually show value to the corporates about why should they tap into innovation and work with more and more startups or academic institutions or loosely held innovators to create a ecosystem which is very, very strong. And I continue to do so today in different capacities. I work with various national and state level governments in India for policy making, to guide and mentor various nationally recognized startup incubators and their heads on how to run sustainable programs. And of course, I've invested in a lot of startups in my personal capacity as well, so I continue to guide them as well. Does that answer your question? Sorry.
Absolutely. There's much more under the surface that I would love to dive into, but for now, thank you very much.
Yeah, that would be nice to see what is behind the curtain. I think Thomas mentioned the word magic. I mean, that's the right probably word, because it just doesn't come natural. Yeah, so there must have been like billion little steps that you must have probably taken so you can answer the question this way. Yeah, I think we got it. So let's move to the.
Absolutely.
I think that's going to be probably the last case study, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the last case study. I'll probably very, very quickly cover this in 2-3 minutes, and then we can wind it up. So this was a case study at Anheuser-Busch InBev. As you can see, it's a Budweiser cooler, right? We used to call it a Visi cooler. And the problem statement that came to us was that we are losing a humongous amount of coolers from our point of sales every year. That is leading to a capex of at least a few $100 million to be reinvested to purchase these new coolers, right? The first thought in my head was, how can someone steal a cooler out of a point of sale. I mean, it's not you're not stealing a bottle of beer or a can of beer. You're actually stealing the whole damn cooler, right? So it was very weird for me. But then we realized that that is happening, and for whatever reason, it's happening, right? I mean, I don't want to get into that. So when we started to experiment or explore around this problem statement, we realized that it's not just the cooler that's the problem that's disappearing, right? There are a bunch of problems to be addressed in that environment through digital transformation. The first problem was, of course, that we were able to track the assets. If there's a small movement also of the cooler, could there be an alert sent to the command center as well as the store owner saying that the cooler is moving, and we can see that across the globe? That was one. Second one was luminosity measurement and temperature measurement. The reason these are important is because, for example, you go to a bar or a store where you have a Budweiser cooler, and there are other competitor brands coolers as well. Now imagine if there's no light in the cooler, or the temperature is not keeping the beers cold enough. The obvious option for the consumer is go to the competitor's cooler and pick out their beers, right? So important to track and measure the temperature being maintained, the ideal temperature and the ideal luminosity basis our recommendations for the cooler, because we are the ones at AB and Web who are placing this at various point of sale stores. The owners of the stores were not purchasing it. We were giving it complimentary to the store owners, right? So it was important for us to track that. And then there were three other aspects which were very interesting for us. One was shelf purity. And in a lot of markets, what we realized was that it was Budweiser refrigerator, and we wanted to stack Budweisers, Coronas, Stellas, and Hogardens in a particular order, and only those brands. And we realized that it was not just those brands. People were putting the competitor brands. People were putting Coca-Cola bottles as well, right? So there was no shelf purity. There was very bad planogram compliances being followed, and there was almost no way that we were able to track the inventory replenishment. So consumer would walk in, they would see only one can of Budweiser, a lot of Corona, Stellas, and Hogardens, for example, but only one can of Budweiser. And they would be like, okay, we were supposed to buy a few more cans of Budweiser, but let's go to a competitor's brand and pick that up. This was when the store owners had a lot more stock available, but they were not stacked in the refrigerator. So there was a problem of inventory monitoring and inventory replenishment. So we kind of combined all these problems and solved that through a combination of IoT and computer vision, where we made it very easy for any foot soldier who would go, or area sales manager who would go to each of these stores to check if everything is working fine, if they need no stocks and so on and so forth, for them to just stick a small device, just, if you can see my cursor, just behind the door's handle on the inside of the door. This would give us all the data, capturing images and looking at sensors, so that we had real-time data. And this problem did not solve the $300 million capex problem alone. This created more sales by a certain percentage, which would have created an impact of about $1 billion across the globe. And for this, we were invited to New York to present this to the CEO of AB InBev as a top 5 solutions globally for that year that got selected for the innovation potential that we had. So again, for this, we worked with 2 different startups. Both of them had presence in India, and one of them had presence in Europe. The other had presence in US as well. So interesting solution, big impact. But and transforming the way we looked at doing business in the physical stores and physical environments, with pushing this out in a lot of with a convenient logistical manner as well.
Impressive. But do you have any other case study that follows this one, or this is the end?
This is the end.
Well, I think it is like a lot that you already covered. Are there any closing questions or anything towards what you have heard so far?
I hope it wasn't boring.
Not at all.
It was not, absolutely not. I think my comment after this, well, I'm not a subject matter expert. I cannot talk about AI or digital transformation much. But what I can say is that coming back to the topic of the bridges, this is the bridge that we wanted to create. And when I was discussing with Abhay exactly this program, he said, well, let's build the bridge and let's see if the people decide to walk on it. So the connections are made. If you have been here, if you attended the program, if you will see the recording, I personally never had an issue with Abhay not replying to my messages or not being open to anything that I wanted to discuss with him. So I definitely think that, and I speak on your behalf, I apologize a little bit, but I do believe that you are a very open and generous person in sharing your knowledge and expertise and tips, and I would encourage those who want to meet across this bridge to actually go and reach out to Abhay on LinkedIn or any contact that he would very happy provide. Am I mistaken so that you can eliminate those 5 minutes of my talk?
No, this is fantastic. In fact, it's the other way around. I think conversations empower me. I get to learn so much from others, and I think knowledge sharing is fantastic, right, as a concept. And like you mentioned, it's all about bridging, and kind of building those bridges, sharing knowledge with each other, and building amazing connects. So looking forward to that.
Thank you.
Monika, if I may, I have one more question before we close
Sure.
off. Abhay, if you would share any key lessons you learned from your experience, which lessons would you share to people trying to build ecosystems around innovation as well?
Lessons for building the ecosystem, right, is what I heard.
Yes.
Okay, so I think first and foremost, like I mentioned, right, in innovation, the partnerships, and when we build innovation ecosystems, it's important to look at the most not so obvious partnerships, right, from a lens that really solves our problem. I'll give you an example. We partnered with the American Association for Retired People because we were experimenting around the utilization of graphene for home improvement use cases for a target audience who were elderly, right, who were above the age group of 60. Now, most innovation teams would rely on the consumer insights team, sorry, to plug the information for them. We realized that the consumer insights team would be biased with business impact standpoint. So we approached a very unique partner, and we interviewed about 60 odd people who were elderly, 50 to 60 odd of them, to actually gather the real problems that we are trying to solve for, right? So I think the first thing as an ecosystem innovator, or ecosystem builder, you need to think about partnerships from a very different lens as against what is most commonly out there, right? I mean, of course, we partner with the VCs, we partner with the startups, we partner with academia, but how do we look at organizational partnerships very, very differently and create unique value proposition for ourselves as well as our consumers? Second, I would say is that, it's never a zero-sum game. My experience has always been that, you can create a lot of wins together. So like we just spoke about, knowledge sharing is an important lesson for me that I have learned over the years. It's proved out to be very, very valuable. People I've known for years today, I've always tried to help people out in various capacities possible. And you don't expect the help to be returned or the favor to be returned, right? Because you don't look at it that way. But a lot of these people are very, very close friends. Some of the unicorn founders are good friends today. And it's funny that, I get the news about some of the stuff that they are doing a lot faster. And that helps me out because they're always standing behind me to back me up when I need them. So always give first. I think Techstars follows this, give first philosophy, but I think multiple other organizations do too. And I think I do follow the same thing as well, that they are, one should be open to giving first and building an ecosystem around that. So these are at least two lessons that strike me at the top of my mind, which has allowed me to build very good relationships and a decently good, effective ecosystem together.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Luboš, do you have any closing remarks and anything that you would like to share?
Not really. I'm just noting down how the leapfrogging is such an interesting principle. Tandon, is there anything, if it's not completely, non-disclosure agreement now, is there anything where you expect another major leapfrog? that we should expect you to present in a year from now, for instance?
I would say the leapfrog in India that I'm seeing that should happen is on the health stack.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have solved for the financial stack. Now we are solving for the health stack. And I think what I do perceive government stepping into it as well is that, you know, we'll be majority of the countries who are perceived to be good at healthcare. I think the COVID response was fantastic, and I think it's what we're developing now to build that as a holistic system. I'm very confident a year from now we'll be way ahead. We would have leapfrogged basis the health stack where every information point of every interaction with any medical practitioner and a patient would be available to any other doctor, would be available to insurance providers without compromising the data security, without compromising the GDPR or any other kind of compliances on the patient data in such a structured way that would transform healthcare for about 1.5 billion people at a very low cost, of course.
We will keep an eye.
We'll keep an eye.
Before we run out of time and before we finish this session, still going in the same methodology of building the bridges and introducing the new places. Today we digged a little bit into India, and I would like to share here as well with you one of the projects that we have been preparing and working on this year with several of our partners, which is dedicated for Czech business audience, Czech leaders, innovators, change makers, and it is a business excursion to South Africa. So we wanted to share here with you a short video just to introduce you the concept, what is it about, and maybe you will spread the word a little bit.
And then also we'll give you a couple of seconds to sort out the thoughts, and before Abhay leaves us, then we can ask maybe one more question. But
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The Global Exec invites you to join a 9-day immersive business excursion to discover South Africa. BESA is an exclusive once-in-a-lifetime trip to the Rainbow Nation for industry leaders looking to obtain professional development through inspiration, motivation, and networking. Travel with like-minded participants to Johannesburg and Cape Town to hear the success stories of local changemakers in the African nation at the forefront of innovation and entrepreneurship. Business visits twinned with awe-inspiring wildlife expeditions in Johannesburg make BESA an unrivaled trip for those looking to maximize their L&D potential. Head to theglobalexec.com/BESA to cement your spot.
So this is my recent baby, which I am very proud of, but let's see if Luboš, you wanted to say a couple more points at the end as we are close to the end of the session.
Not really. I mean, that I like technologies and all that stuff. So I mean, it would be really nice to see, what is as I mentioned, those billion little steps. And we've got Lukáš, who's also, I would say, a little leapfrogging, let's say, the experience for people at events, and me also having been in charge for exponential technologies for some time. So I mean, we're probably not the audience that would be against. Yeah, I'm just thinking, Abhay, is there any, human side of it that you find, more difficult, or something that you struggle with, jumping into another startup that develops either AI, visual systems, and so on? Is there anything you would like to, recommend to us digital leads around the world?
Sorry, I couldn't follow the question completely.
Yeah. If there is anything on the human side that you would like to recommend to us as change makers and digital leads around the world, something that you found interesting in India that worked in your case, something that we can steal with pride.
I think there's a lot of humanitarian connects that are happening, and we are supporting some of them too. I would definitely go through my network and share some interesting leads, that I think it would be very interesting for synergies exploration as well. And also just to take a step back and look at the video that you just showed, I would love to be a part of that, right? That would look fantastic. And I think we were just discussing before the conference, there's so much of innovation in Africa, the kind of plan that you have, I would love to be a part of that in whatever capacity, and also try to tap into some Indian change makers who could join us for this trip as well.
Next year we are going to India.
And so we can close it really. What was the number of unicorns in India you mentioned?
I think we are at 105 right now, 105 or 107.
105. Yeah, I like the story when you asked your US colleagues how many of them thought that there is even one. Yeah, and now this is a completely different number.
Yeah, I mean, 80% of my colleagues in US in the previous organization, I'm talking about 50 odd people, thought that there are 0 unicorns in India, and back then we were at about 80, 70 to 80, and now we are at about 105, 107 unicorns. So we are the third largest unicorn market in the world.
Awesome. I think that's about nice ending.
Absolutely, it is. So I would like to just express my huge gratitude and thank you, Abhay, for sharing your experience, spending your time today with us, sharing your knowledge, and as well to everybody who attended in person, to everybody who will attend and see the recording, and of course to Red Button EDU, to Luboš, to pushing this idea forward and to spending 4 hours yesterday to put this all together and help us facilitate. So thank you so much to all who attended.
Thank you, Abhay.
Thank you.